let's talk about The Beta Test. The Beta Test is a dark comedy thriller, very unique film. It was written and directed, and it stars Jim Cummings, as well as PJ McCabe. He co-wrote and co-directed the film, and he also co-stars in the film. He's not like one of the main characters, but he shows up quite a bit. The movie is this sort of high concept, sort of, I don't even know. It's about relationships. It's about adultery. It's about a guy, a Hollywood agent, who gets a mysterious letter in the mail saying that he can attend this anonymous, no strings attached sexual encounter. And he decides, well, if I do this, what will happen? And so as certain events unfold, his entire world sort of just falls apart.
Mike Lib, one sentence description would be Eyes Wide Shut meets Swimming with Sharks.
I would say meets Office Space.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, have you seen Swimming with Sharks? Because that's more like Hollywood agent type thing, I think.
Yeah, so. Point taken. It's a short movie, first of all, and it kind of just gets to the point. Like, I was kind of surprised at the structure of this thing. Like, it starts with like a cold open. It runs you right into this world right off the bat. And I would say this is one of the most fascinating movies where the main character you hate. He's sort of this like, Norman Bates, but like more of like the American Psycho version. And he's like the most stereotypical Hollywood agent. This character should be infuriating. This character should be so annoying and so like, I don't care. But Jim Cummings, we mentioned he's the main guy. He also is the director and the writer. This movie is a bit of a magic trick because I was so fascinated by every boneheaded, dumb thing, evil thing he was doing. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Under the Silver Lake, where you despise that guy, but you're still like invested. You want to know what's going to happen. It's so odd. Also, really want to point out Virginia Newcomb, who we saw from The Death of Dick Long, is in this. I thought that she was kind of the secret weapon of the movie. Right? Like, she comes in and there are some like maybe some preconceptions that I had with her character that the movie totally spins, because I think Cummings understands what you're supposed to feel. Like, he's intentionally inserting and removing things from this movie to guide you a certain way, but then to surprise you. I came out of this movie really digging it. I think Beta Test is a neat, tight, fun little thriller. If I can say that, with some interesting ideas. I don't think it totally nails the landing. I think it could have had a much stronger ending, but what do you think?
I mean, I was definitely intrigued to see it. I know we didn't talk about Thunder Road when it came out, but I really, really enjoyed that film. I've grown to like it even more thinking back on it. And I think it was a really good showcase for Jim Cummings, not only as a filmmaker, but as an actor. I think he just has such a idiosyncratic screen presence in a way that I think he seems really aware of and in tune with, as far as like playing these sort of broadly macro aggressive male figures in a way that obviously, like the key phrase would be like toxic masculinity or whatever. But like, clearly like he plays the type of guys who like, they got some shit to work through. Like they've got these like issues that they're dealing with, either because of like public perception or like their own inherent like need to do something, or this idea that like they, as like straight white men, are like kind of promised these certain things and they just can't get them. And I thought he communicated on that stuff really well in Thunder Road. And ultimately I'm favorable on Wolf of Snow Hollow, but I found myself a bit disappointed by it. I think you were more favorable than I was. Did you see that one? Or what?
No, we were talking last week. That was the one that I skipped. I think you talked about that with Abby.
That's right. Yeah, I remember we covered it on the show, but I didn't remember if you had seen it. I remember I appreciate what it was going for, especially in terms of like using the wolf metaphor for like kind of this tale of like addiction and like him playing another cop character in a way that, I could see it being narratively a piece with Thunder Road, but I just found it to be not quite as affecting. But I think this movie, I was really curious about his third film because I was just like, okay, I think he needs to move away from playing cops. Like, he's done this 3 times now with his first 2 films and then with Halloween Kills. Like, I want to see him do something different, kind of tackling his themes, his pet ideas, but in a way that willingly kind of skews other genres, other types of characters, other lines of business. And clearly, like, Hollywood is festering with these sort of like, pompous, self-satisfied kind of guys who just want to like put on this persona of like they got everything together, they're on top of everything, but like, they have these kind of very fragile egos, this flailing industry that is so unpredictable and so wildly changing at any given moment in time, especially now. And I think he makes a pretty effective thriller / satire / horror film. I guess it's technically a horror film overall. It has horror elements to it, certainly.
I don't know if I agree with that. It's not even that suspenseful, really.
I would disagree with you on that one. I thought it was pretty tense. Not like...
It's tense, but it's tense in like a frantic, I don't know.
Right.
Like, again, I think that it's like a textbook thriller satire in that sense.
Yeah, I'm just going. IMDb credits it as a horror comedy.
Oh well, if IMDb,
sure, I'm just telling you. Yeah, they credit it as a horror comedy thriller. So that's the three genres.
You know what? They can do what they want.
The beginning of the film is certainly at least horror adjacent, and then there's like a few other scenes that borrow from the horror. And obviously, his first film was a horror, or his second film, was a horror film. So yeah, I liked it. I don't know if I loved it, but I definitely admire what Jim Cummings is doing as a filmmaker. And I think he's really in tune with what he wants to say and what he wants to communicate. And I don't know if I have liked the film of his as much as I've liked Thunder Road, but I think this is certainly a step up from The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
It's funny. I think this is one of those episodes where all the movies, I think we're pretty much on the same page. Yeah, I'm in like it, not love it mode as well. I think it's dark, quirky. And it's what I like about it is that it's clearly about the toxicity of like men in positions of power. Like there's even a part, it's like, I miss the early 2000s. There's a lot of like Harvey Weinstein commentary.
Yeah. Right,
there's a lot of like, you can't do this sort of thing anymore. But it's commenting on it without feeling like it's above the criticism. You almost get the sense that Jim Cummings is kind of talking to himself in this movie, like a little bit. And I think it's just being honest about what men are feeling about masculine culture and how they're feeling a little bit like, man, what are we supposed to do? And I think there's so much good content in that regard of like, in this movie, it's not like there's some sort of like bastion of here's how you're supposed to be. It's a little bit bleaker than that, which I appreciate, because I think we've talked about this in plenty of reviews where sometimes I think like Hollywood's response to skirting the sort of problematic dude archetype is that they make this lion out of the nice guy kind of character. He can do no wrong. We saw it like very recently with Last Night in Soho, where that character, he's perfect. And it's kind of like reverse gendering, I think, what we had to deal with for the longest time with female supporting characters and manic pixie dream girls to some extent, where it's like this like endlessly doting, always like perfectly supportive character instead of a one-dimensional human being. So it's funny because this movie, it's about that, but it also like wraps it up in this very engaging story and thriller about a guy who becomes repeatedly obsessed with this like sort of scam that he perceives as going on, where people are being like lured into this situation with these purple envelopes, and he's trying to unpack it. And I like how the movie too, like as it goes, it starts to sort of like loosen the bolts on how like bizarre and mysterious this whole like revelation of what's going on is supposed to be. At some point you get the feeling, oh, it's not actually like this big unbelievable thing, and that's kind of the point. What he's projecting onto it is sort of the point. And so I won't say anything else because I think it's worth discovering for yourself. But I really got a lot out of it in that respect.
See, I kind of like the merge the two, where it's like there is actually something deeper and more sinister happening, but it's also kind of like in his head at the same time. Like
that's what I mean.
It's kind
I
of
guess
like a mix of both.
It is there. It's not like a small thing that's going on, but I do think that like at times you think like it's going for something like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to say because I would give too much away, but yeah.
well, I mean, without getting into like the end of film, there are clear scenes where like other characters are put in harm's way and in danger because of something associated with this like kind of a looming presence. So it's like, it's not a secret that like there is actual stuff going down. It's just a matter of like how much of it's actually going down and how much of it's related to his paranoia and all this stuff, and like how much is he being influenced by these things and how much is he actually just like too into his head to really like see the big picture here in a way that I don't know, it almost feels like weirdly almost like Inherent Vice-esque without like the drugs. Like kind of like there is like stuff going on, but also it's just kind of like this weirdo going around trying to act more macho than he really is, and just kind of caught in this like huge conspiracy thing that he can never fully understand or even try to really understand properly outside of his own kind of selfish interest in it. And I think it's done, and obviously in a very broadly satirical way, but in ways I often found pretty funny and gripping, even when the central character is just a huge douche.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of uncut gems in there too, in terms of the franticness of it. It's got a little bit of the number 23 with Jim Carrey, where it's just, it spirals and spirals out of something that's not actually that we're spiraling to some respect. I totally forgot what you were saying about the reason I wasn't thinking about a horror is I actually forgot about the, like, some of this, it happens early, but like some of the killing that happens in this, like the danger of it. And I think it's because that was the least interesting thing about the movie to me. So I wasn't even thinking about that when we were like, oh, is this a horror? I guess it is, because it does have that stuff. I forgot.
Right. Yeah, well, that's why I was kind of confused when you were being hand-wavy about
this isn't a horror and someone's like being stabbed.
Yeah, you're just like, am I being gaslit right now?
I'm so sorry, Lashin.
No, but yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I mean, I used horror kind of loosely with Spencer, and I don't think that's actually a horror film. I just think it has like horror type scenes. This is like somewhat of a horror film, but mostly a satire / thriller / mystery or whatever, that just happens to have like kind of like a horror movie bubbling underneath it at the same time. But yeah, I mean, like, I wish I loved it, because I think I really like what Jim Cummings is going for, like I said, as a filmmaker and actor. And I think he's doing some really interesting things. And I think what he's able to do on these really low budgets is really commendable. Like I think his films look really sharp for like being only like a few $1,000s. And I think he's smart and economical as a filmmaker as far as like using space and time like that. And also I like that his filmmaking seems like very controlled and thoughtful, but he plays these characters who are clearly like unhinged and like willing to freak out at any moment. And it's like this kind of like nice yin yang that I think his style is really smart about communicating. And he just seems to be really kind of honing his style in interesting ways. And like I said, it seems like he's moving more to genre territory with his later films in ways I find really intriguing. And I want to keep following his filmography for that reason and more.
Yeah, this thing is a micro budget, like $250,000. So it's really impressive, because you don't watch this movie and be like, I would assume it's like a couple million, you know? And the fact that it's like a fraction of that is it's seriously impressive what he's able to accomplish with so little. And I think part of that too is that he doesn't have any big name actors. He has people you might recognize, you know, like you might recognize PJ McCabe and you might recognize Virginia Newcomb, but he does almost this whole movie with people, you know, where he's probably the biggest, most recognizable face, and he himself isn't that recognizable. People would be like, Winnie the Pooh? Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. But yeah, this is from IFC Films. It sounds like we both dig it a good bit. Yeah, not one of my favorites, but certainly something that I premiered at Berlin, and it got a little bit of buzz there. It's now available in VOD. I don't think it's in a lot of theaters. It's only made like $25,000 at the box office, so I think it's at like a handful of theaters right now, probably New York and LA if I would have had to guess. But yeah, I think it's if you're in the mood for a cool little indie that you can stream or rent on demand, definitely give this one a look. It's worth your time. Any last thoughts though on beta test before we play our game?
Well, I'm guessing there's no like cinema score or anything for this, right? We're just going off of. Yeah, I was gonna say
Vegas. I don't think has gotten it yet. They still have Spencer to deal with to chew on.
Sure, they're still contemplating how they feel about Spencer.
They're still in the theater,
right? It's like, I think I like that. Yeah. Beta test would be even more confounding, I think, to them.
Probably.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think I have anything else to talk about with beta test. I mean, there's a lot I want to dive into, but I feel like a lot of it would be spoilery. So
Yeah,
I
same.
don't want to so I think it's worth watching. It's definitely, if you're intrigued by it, and if you like Thunder Road, it's worth watching for sure. And I'm really excited to see where Jim Cummings goes next. But yeah, not like a great film, but definitely one that keeps me very interested to see where this filmmaker and actor is going to go next.
Agreed. All right, what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is? We have 67 reviews counted. Not bad. So a lot of those were Berlin, but we've gotten some more as the weekend came. I'm actually impressed with how many it got, considering how many other films are happening right now. And
yeah,
I guess people were like us. It's like we want to capture at least one thing. Get to one thing that's not like the big movie. So There you go.
Yeah. I do think Jim Cummings has earned a lot of clout, deservedly so, I think, in critic circles and all that.
Cummings.
Yeah. I'm going to say 68% for the critic score.
68? Really?
Yeah.
68?
Is that too high or too low?
It's 94.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was 100.
I thought it'd just be
coming out. I
thought it'd be kind of divisive. I don't know. I was way off on that one.
Wow, I thought you liked the film. I was kidding.
No, I thought it'd just be more divisive.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. What about audience score? Audience score, we can't really like take much with because it has fewer than 50 ratings. None of that, like, it doesn't have verified ratings, but I don't imagine there's like a campaign against this movie. So
this is a real shot in the dark.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say 74% again.
55.
55. All right.
People saw this after Spencer and they were in such a bad mood. They were like, you know what? I don't like this either. I don't like anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, of all the films we talked about this week, I'd say Beta Test is it's like right in the middle. I would say, like, I think Spencer is like the big recommend for me in terms of the ones we just talked about. And yeah, Beta Test is a good follow if you want to check that out as well. Eternals, I mean, people know if they're going to see that. I mean, what could we possibly say about Eternals? That would,
we said like an hour's worth, I think.
I guess
we
so.
said our piece. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.